Good afternoon. Hopefully everyone is enjoying their lunch. So if I could have everyone's attention, please. So I am very excited for this next discussion, really addressing the cybersecurity workforce needs of small and medium-sized businesses. And in order to put this panel together, we partnered with a fantastic organization called the Technology Association of Georgia. We're very excited to work with them and continue to collaborate them to address the cybersecurity needs of the greater Georgia community. And here to provide some welcoming remarks for the panel is the President and CEO of the Technology Association of Georgia, Mr. Larry Williams.
Good afternoon. All right, starting to compete with dessert. That's not a good place to be, but welcome everyone. My name is Larry Williams. I'm the President and CEO of the Technology Association of Georgia. Most people know us as TAG, and I'm delighted to welcome you to Georgia or welcome you to this conference if you're local, and appreciate you being here. And I want to say I greatly appreciate all that you do. There's nothing more important for us today for our domestic and national security, as well as keeping our own networks, our companies, and our citizens and residents safe right now than the things that the educators, the business, and the students are focused on at this conference. So thank you for all you do. At TAG, we think a lot about a lot of what the technology ecosystem represents. On behalf of our board of directors and our 30,000 members across the state, we continue to focus on things that continue to connect, educate, and inspire the ecosystem so that we can continue to be at the forefront of the innovation economy. So a lot of what we do is focusing in on cybersecurity. We have a society with some of the leading companies that are here, and it really reflects the deep, rich history that Georgia has in cyber and network security. And we're going back decades and decades that really help build the layers of the onions of cybersecurity as we know it today. So if we think about some of the things that happened at Georgia Tech with the Department of Defense that led to great companies like ISS that became part of IBM, SecureWorks that became part of Dell, AirWatch, which was the company that was the first mobile security application that Apple led onto the iPhone. And it really set the standard. It moved where people moved away from the BlackBerries, if anybody remembers the BlackBerry, and really made the iPhone the standard. Those all happened here, and we've moved into the next iteration, especially as cybersecurity and privacy intersect, with OneTrust based here leading that way. And that's just to illustrate why cybersecurity is so close to us and how we really are, some of the global leaders are based right here. It also led to the Cyber Center that we built in Augusta next to the Cyber Army Command. But that was just building on that deep, rich network that we have in Georgia. So I'd love to tell you more. I know there are a lot of great centers around the country, so greatly appreciate all that you do. But that also led us to create something called the National Technology Security Coalition. That is a national federal advocacy organization that is the voice of the CISO to the federal government, talking about important things like data breach notification laws and harmonization of privacy laws across all 50 states. So we're excited about what the NTSC is doing, and represented by great companies such as Coca-Cola, Aflac, Johnson & Johnson, JP Morgan Chase, Microsoft, all sit in the voice of the private sector CISO. I'm also proud of the work that we're doing that makes us an ally of yours, and that is helping to educate the next generation of cybersecurity leaders throughout our state and really around the country. We're also very proud of our collaboration with the Department of Economic Development here in Georgia to help with the CMMC programs to make sure our companies are prepared to be able to continue to do business with our federal government. So a little bit about us, a little bit about Georgia. Welcome to the conference, welcome to Georgia if you're visiting, and I'll be around and happy to speak with you throughout the day, throughout the afternoon. But right now, it's my pleasure to introduce Roy Hadley. Roy Hadley is one of the premier and the preeminent cybersecurity attorneys in the country. Happens to be a good friend of mine, happens to be a great collaborator of us all, and in fact, whenever we need deep legal policy insights and we have the tough questions, we call Roy. And so please join me in welcoming Roy Hadley to the stage.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Absolutely. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Hope everybody is doing well. And as Larry said, welcome to the conference. It's just, as a personal aside, it's just great to be back out and great to see everybody. Great to collaborate, be able to break bread with each other. So, welcome. Our goal today is really to talk about workforce development and, kind of what the challenges are and what the opportunities are, particularly with small and mid-sized businesses. I sat in on some of the panels this morning and the sessions this morning, and, you hear a lot of good stuff going on, but I think we can all agree that there's a need to develop the workforce. A statistic that I had, and I always hesitate to throw out statistics, is that there are about 2.5 million jobs in the cybersecurity industry right now that are unfilled. And then you look at kids coming out of college, you look at veterans coming out of the military, and you just see those opportunities. And so that's what we're going to talk about today, but we're going to talk about it with a particular bend towards small and mid-sized businesses. As you know, if you're in the cybersecurity area, small and mid-sized businesses get hit all the time. Ransomware attacks, cyber attacks. Literally before I came on stage, I was talking to a superintendent in a school system in southern Alabama. They just got hit with an attack. And so as I get off the stage, we'll be dealing with that. But it just underscores, the need for that workforce. And when you talk to those, small school systems, the hospitals, the rural hospitals, and those businesses, they'll tell you, we just don't have the people. We can't find the people that can help us with this cybersecurity thing. So that's what we're going to talk about today, the small and mid-sized businesses. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up the three very distinguished panelists. I'm just going to bring them up, sit them down, and then I'm going to have them kind of introduce themselves to you so that you can get in. So give them a little applause when they just walk on the stage. They'll walk on, sit down, and then we'll get going with them. So first, we have Debbie McLeod, who is the president and apprentice director of McLeod Business Solutions. Debbie? Next, we have Zach Hodges, deputy director of the Cybersecurity Solutions, Inc., and also a member of the Augusta Chamber of Commerce, and we're going to come back to that too. And, I started to switch up the order a little bit, throw them off, but, then I decided, okay, I'll be good. And last but certainly not least, we have my great friend Mark Lupo, who's a resilience specialist and team lead at the UGA Cyber Arch program, and also a cohort of mine on the Georgia CMMC task force. So we're going to talk about that a little bit too. So I'm going to sit down and kind of behave myself here a little bit. And as I'm going to start down here at this end and ask Mark to introduce yourselves to us and tell us a little bit more about you.
Sure. So Mark Lupo, I work within UGA in a faculty position focused on public service and outreach. So we work with both small, medium-sized businesses across the state of Georgia, as well as some within our Cyber Arch program, some city, county government, school systems, recently just working to help them strengthen their cyber posture. Been with UGA 17 years. Most of that work has been within the small business development arena. More recently, past couple of years, more on the cybersecurity focus.
Okay. Zach?
Yes, sir. So Zach Hodges, I'm the VP COO for Cybersecurity Solutions. We were founded back in 2015 by military veterans, and the primary focus for us as a company has always been to bring enterprise-level solutions to those small and medium businesses across America. As we know, most of the small and medium businesses can't afford a lot of the tools, a lot of the licensing, or don't have the know-how to implement proper cyber and meet compliance. So we've been a big advocate of trying to reach out to those in the communities across the U.S. and help them out on that journey.
Okay, fantastic. And Debbie, certainly last but not least.
I'm Debbie McLeod. I am the president and the apprenticeship director of McLeod Information Systems. We are a small business that focuses on cybersecurity. I also was one of the first small businesses in the state of South Carolina to set up an apprenticeship program, which we currently have three registered apprentices. Two of them will be completing their program by the end of August this year.
Okay, fantastic. And we're going to deeper dive into the apprenticeship program because I thought that was just a very, very neat thing. So when I said 2.5 million, kind of jobs out there that are unfilled, did that surprise you in any way?
Not me personally, no.
No? Why not?
We see it, right? So it's not just in the cybersecurity industry, but we see it across multiple industries all around the world. But to me, I think that cyber is pretty unique in a term of when you hear cybersecurity, you think, okay, they're here to protect my information. They're here to secure my environment. But there's multiple different paths within that career field. In fact, when I talk to most kids that are in high school or college that are looking to enter the cybersecurity field, they all want to be pen testers, right? That's like the number one thing. And then you sit them down and talk to them about what a pen test consists of and show them all the documentation and paperwork, and they want to run the opposite direction.
Right.
So it's, I think a little bit of it is how broad the field is and trying to find that niche, as well as just being able to have the small and medium businesses like Debbie's or mine to be able to know and get involved at that high school or that college level to help train them for specific skill sets.
Gotcha. Now, Mark, I saw you shaking your head too. That didn't surprise you.
No, just because I know the challenges right now we're seeing with small businesses. Employees continually finding those right employees is a struggle, especially now, post-pandemic. But I think it's even more so related to cybersecurity, IT, being able to, one, afford and be competitive, as we were talking before, be competitive with some of the larger corporate government agencies.
Gotcha. And Debbie, you like Zach, are a small business owner, so you, I think, would have a very unique perspective on that. What challenges do you see and do you have and do you see in the industry?
Well, we have a government contract, so trying to fill positions sometimes gets a little tricky as far as by the time we find someone that's qualified, another larger company has came along and they've offered them more money, and there we get to start all over again. And it gets expensive because depending on the security clearance that just to do background checks for the one contract, it costs us around $5,000. So whenever we're trying to employ someone and we're going through this whole process of getting them lined up to getting them signed on, and then another company comes along and offers more dollars, it's very discouraging.
Right, right. And I know that's one of the things that we were talking about at lunch before. It's just, the challenge of, especially for small and mid-sized businesses, developing the talent, but then finding the talent, developing it, and then having that talent kind of pulled from under you by, one of the big shops that you really can't, work with. I know kind of anecdotally, I was working with a large city that had a ransomware attack, and we called in a company to come help, and I guess the chief risk officer asked me, well, how much does the CEO for this, that city make? And my response was, I think they make about $175,000, and this was the CIO, I'm sorry, about $175,000, and he looked at me and he said, I pay some of my junior researchers $175,000. And so, you look at the level of talent that you can get and potentially keep, for what you can pay a lot of times in the small and mid-sized businesses, versus, what some of the bigger shops can pay, it becomes a challenge to keep it. Now, one of the things that was really interesting to me, I know, Mark, you had talked about, or we mentioned the Cyber Arch program. You know, and I think one of the challenges / opportunities, I had a boss once that said you couldn't say challenge, it was always an opportunity. And so the opportunity is, you know, how do we, you know, what are some of the novel and unique ways to develop that workforce, you know, and get those kids that maybe don't think about cyber, and Debbie, you and I had a conversation about that we'll talk about, but, you know, that don't think about cyber, how do you get them in to thinking about cyber and get them in the pathway towards, you know, being in the industry? And
Touch on one of those phrases you said, the pathway. Is Judy out here that does the Journeys map? I was in that session yesterday, Journeys map coming out of California. Yes, she's here. Right. Okay. Well, that was excellent as far as journeysmap.org. If you've not been there, but being able to map a pathway for students to whatever career field they're in, very unique. UGA Cyber Arch, we started December of 2017. It's a university-wide program. We got 10 to 15 faculty positions, both academic and public service and outreach. Go into a community, working with that community, helping them identify, strengthen areas of cybersecurity. We had a couple of pilot counties. Our first vulnerability assessment, several months long, generated a 400-plus page report to this city county government. Totally not duplicatable. So we've been searching for something that would allow us to scale up. And there are a couple of programs I wanted to be sure to mention. If you're not familiar with these, they really have provided a missing piece of the puzzle of what we're looking for in developing a student-integrated cybersecurity approach to working in communities and small businesses, city, county governments. One's out of MIT Extension. It's called the Cybersecurity Clinic model. Who's familiar with that? Wow, that's Dr. Susskind up at MIT. Done a really great job. If you go to my bio, there's some links down at the bottom. One of those is over to their course. It's a 4-module course, free, that allows students to go through and become, if they want to do a paid version, $100, they can get a certification as a cybersecurity clinic assessor, I think. The second is coming out of University of Texas, San Antonio. And their approach is the community cybersecurity maturity model. That is more of a standardized, like a 5-level assessment. Reminds me of CMMC, kind of the way it's set up, but it provides an organization or community these 5 levels of progression. So within CyberArch, what MIT provided was that ability to integrate students into the program, to go out into a community where they can both see some of the challenges that small, medium-sized businesses, as well as city, county government, school systems are facing, what the gaps are, and then also giving them the opportunity to interact with clients, individuals that are facing these challenges in these organizations. So it helps open these students' eyes to what these organizations are facing. So we do that on a semester basis, just finished up our first pilot. We'll be ramping that up in the fall. But we see that as a way to both introduce students to the challenges that smaller organizations are facing and hopefully kind of whet their appetite for working in those environments.
In those
going
environments.
forward.
Good stuff, really good stuff. And, you know, I went to Georgia, it's my alma mater, so.
Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.
Go Dogs. Little self-plug there. Now, Zach, I know you do a lot with the Augusta Chamber, but, you know, you also do a fair amount of CMMC and some of the things. What are some of the unique things that you're seeing out there right now? Because, again, the challenge is, you know, we all know that there's an issue. We all know that there are all these jobs out there. We know that it's hard to get people into the workforce. Unemployment technically is running, not that bad, but these jobs are being unfulfilled. Are you seeing anything, are you all doing or seeing anything? The Augusta Chamber, you've got the Cyber Center there, you've got a great ecosystem in Augusta around cyber. Kind of what are you seeing out there?
Yeah, so there's a few pieces there that I can kind of talk to. One, from what we see from a small business perspective, just talking cybersecurity, as you mentioned, CMMC, different compliance models. Every company that we talk to that's a small business thinks they're more secure than what they are, right? So it's always a shock factor when we come in and do an assessment and then tell them their score. Because typically, a lot of these businesses we go to and we visit, it's the owner's nephew or grandson or their neighbor that's good at IT that's doing their security, right? So I think a big difference is in the past, everything was physical security. You could see it. So you know that your filing cabinet is protected, it's locked in a back room, everything's secure. Now it's a little bit different in the digital world. But speaking from what we see from businesses struggling to employ, that's where, for us as a small business, we plug into any and every good ecosystem that we can. The Georgia Cyber Center is a great example. So our timing of moving into the Georgia Cyber Center was just fantastic. It was a month before the pandemic, so great time to sign a new lease. But I think Todd's out there, and they have a booth in the vendor hall. They helped us grow, and they helped us reach different points in the community that we would have never been able to do as a small business, right? So you have government, private industry, academia, all in one facility. But what they did is they were able to plug us in with certain media channels. They were able to get us synced with their internship programs, with workforce development programs, which has been essential, right? As a small business, it's already hard to find talent, and they're throwing talent at us tied to grants, tied to actual money that we can be reimbursed for salaries for employees. So, and we're able to train them. It comes with a full training program, but we're able to train them specifically to what we do and how we protect businesses in the local communities that they're in. So.
Oh, wow. Neat stuff. And so the interns and all that. And I think that's one of the things that we often overlook, those types of opportunities that come with being associated with signing a lease right before COVID hit.
That was fun.
There's always some upside to it. Now, Debbie, you and I had talked about, and I think I love it, and we mentioned it, the apprenticeship program. And I know you've got different levels. You've got some for youth, some for adults. What's that about? And before you even say what it is, what was the genesis for that? What made you think about it and get into the apprenticeship program sphere?
There were several reasons that came into play. First of all, my background in education and working in elementary education, some Title I, some non-Title I schools, and seeing the disparities and trying to figure out how do you bridge that gap. I also, prior to going into education, had in choosing a college, it was difficult to choose a college with my husband being in active duty Air Force and moving all the time. And so when we finally had orders at Maxwell Air Base in Montgomery, Alabama, I immediately went to the education office and said, where do I start my college career? Because I'm tired of waiting, and I need to get boots on the ground right away. And I ended up choosing HBCU, which opened my eyes and I specifically chose that so that I could better relate to my students as far as what it feels like to be a minority. I know what it feels like to be discriminated against by being a woman. I know what it's like to be discriminated against by being a military spouse. And so I already felt those, and so choosing that HBCU was important to me because I felt like I could better relate to the students that I would be instructing. And it gave me a more well-rounded education in more ways than I ever expected.
Right.
There was no DEIA back in 2000 when I graduated from my HBCU, I'm just saying.
And which one did you go to?
Alabama State
Alabama
University,
State,
go
okay.
Hornets.
Okay.
So yeah, so with that background, and then with hearing my husband as he had retired from the military and was working in cybersecurity as a government contractor, listening to the frustrations that they were often that they would incur trying to find people who were qualified to do the job. And he and I, we had this discussion with this other gentleman, Brandon Dunlap, who was at an ISC Square meeting.
Okay.
They both had for the CISSP, and they were talking. My husband in 2014 told him, I'm going to open my own business and we're going to set up an apprenticeship program. And so he, you know, and us, he and I discussing the business plan, how we're going to move this forward, what were we going to do. He put me in charge of that because he said, you have the education background, you know how to knock on the doors, you know how to get doors open. So he left that part to me. And so with that background on understanding the disparities that exist, and then knowing how to relate to these students, it opened a lot of doors. And I specifically we choose to work with underserved youth. I know
And what age range?
I prefer someone in their junior year to come to us to do the internship portion that we do first, which is 120 hours, to see how will you fit in our program, or do you even really want to consider an apprenticeship? Because it is a commitment, and there is obligations on both sides, and so it's 120 hours for the internship, so that kind of gives them an idea, is this an environment that I want to be in? And it gives us an idea, is this a student that's going to fit within our group? And then if they decide to move forward, then we move forward with the youth apprenticeship. And once they complete the youth apprenticeship, that's a 2-year program. And that is also coincides with them going to the local technical college as well as the hands-on learning at our office. And if they so decide to move forward from that to the adult cybersecurity technician program, then they can stay on for another year and do that. And we just had our first student graduate with his associates in cybersecurity in May.
Okay.
And he should be finishing up his program by the end of August. He chose to wait for the summer to get his CompTIA networking and his CompTIA Security Plus.
Gotcha. Okay, so it's a pretty robust program.
It is a very robust program.
Okay. Replicable?
Yes.
Okay. Hint, hint. Good stuff. So, you know, that I think, you know, you look at that, you look at, you know, the cyber arch, and you start seeing these things that can really make a difference in terms of what you can do in terms of just unique things to kind of start that workforce development. I'm going to switch here for a second and turn to you, Zach. I know you all have done a lot of assessments in the CMMC realm. You know, we didn't work on the task force together, but our paths have crossed because I've heard of the good work that you're doing in the assessments. But you're doing assessments for small and mid-sized businesses, correct?
Yes, sir.
And when you see that, though, when you're going out to them, other than, whoops, we thought we were in better shape than we are, what other challenges are you seeing out there for the small and mid-sized businesses when you're doing this assessments from a workforce standpoint?
Yeah, so a lot of it boils down to budget and personnel, in all honesty, and experience, right? So knowing what you're even looking at. A lot of times when we go into a small or medium business and to do an assessment, they've already done an internal self-assessment. They always score a lot higher on the internal self-assessments,
Of course.
by the way.
90 and above.
And it's not them pencil whipping or lying, though.
Right.
So it's they may say, yes, I have a firewall, check. Well, the firewall that they have is a home office firewall that they bought at Walmart, and it probably doesn't have all the settings or configurations needed.
Right.
So there's a few pieces to it, right? So number one is understanding what you're actually looking at. So a lot of times outsourcing is a more efficient option for a small or medium business, just because you're getting someone who's an expertise. Just as if, when we're working with the MEPs, the manufacturing extension programs, they help small and medium manufacturers across their state. I would hope, Roy, that you wouldn't come to me to machine a part for you as a cybersecurity company, right? So I'm not expecting, this manufacturer who machines very precise parts at their facility to be cybersecurity experts either. And then the other piece is the budget, right? So take CMMC, for example. The DoD came out and said, hey, you shall meet these requirements by X date. If not, you're not going to be able to do business with the Department of Defense. We'll remove you from the supply chain. So now that although we should have already been following NIST guidelines and 800-171 requirements, that does put a formal assessment in play. Now they have to be assessed by an outside organization. There's a lot of responsibilities they take on. They have to write out full sets of policies and procedures on how their workforce is maturing to that model. So there's a little bit of budget, there's a little bit of education, a little bit of experience that's needed from those small businesses, but I think a big missing piece or gap there is that there's places to go to for help. As I mentioned, the manufacturing extension programs, or just last year through the state of Georgia, actually, the Georgia Department of Economic Development, we were awarded a contract to do 20 assessments that the state of Georgia paid for. They had federal funding. They paid for the assessments for those companies. Our company won the bid, so we provided the assessments. But there's companies out there charging tens of thousands of dollars to do those assessments, and they're getting it for free. So looking at those resources, or even some of those ecosystems, as you mentioned before, the Georgia Cyber Center, plugging into people in your community that have that outreach that can help you as a small business kind of extend that help.
Yeah. And as I think you hit on something, and Mark, I'm going to ask you this question, but I'll preface it a little bit. Is do you see out there, especially you're in the education realm, broadly speaking, there are lots of things out there that can be helpful. I know CISA comes to mind, and and a lot of the free assessments and tools that they have in place. Are you seeing that what we're talking about maybe is a communication gap also, that these small and mid-sized businesses, in addition to the workforce development things, don't understand what resources are out there? They don't understand that, what the Mark Lupos of the world are doing at the University of Georgia, or, Columbus State, or Augusta, State, I think it is. Those resources that are out there. Is that something that we ought to be thinking about too when we start talking about workforce development?
In my experience, one of the challenges that the small businesses, and really wanted to preface, as far as small business, there's such a range. When you hear small business, many of us think, well, maybe a 1-2 person operation, maybe 10 employees. SBA's definition will take it up to 500, depending on the industry. So, when you look at that realm, 10 to 25 employees or less, they were facing certain challenges. 100, 200 employees, they're going to be dealing with other challenges as far as bringing IT and cyber staff in-house. As far as resources, in my experience, those that have worked with small businesses before in your day-to-day, cyber is like low on the radar.
Right.
It shouldn't be, but it just is. I mean, they're dealing with other priorities, such as finding the employees just to run the business, cash flow, especially after the pandemic. So the CMMC 800-171 changed the conversation. It did for DoD, moving from this fear-based type model where folks were taking on cybersecurity more because they were afraid they were going to get hit, to now is more incentive-based, where they could frame cybersecurity now as a way in which they could differentiate themselves and grow their business. That right there, and is, that's migrating now to more federal overall, not just DoD. That CMMC, I think, model, we'll see that coming, as well as state, and then larger corporate contract. I mean, if you're going to be in their supply chain, you got to have some aspect of cybersecurity already in place. If you want cyber liability insurance, you got to have certain things in place. So I think that's changing the conversation for business owners, small, medium, from just looking at cybersecurity as a way to protect their organization, now framing it more as a way they can grow their organization. That conversation is totally different for a business owner, in my experience, and I think that can help drive more awareness and recruiting, the apprenticeships and all.
Yeah. Now, I know in the CMMC area, I struggle with it because, it has changed. It has morphed. It has kind of slid. It was one thing, and, we actually had clients that we worked with that went out and spent, $20,000, $25,000, to start down that path to be CMMC certified level 3 or level 2 or level 1, whatever it was. And then, it was almost like the Charlie Brown where, Lucy's standing there with the football and, you run up and all of a sudden you pull it away. And for them, $20,000, $25,000 was real money.
Yep.
It wasn't just something to sneeze at. And so, I now understand why they're reticent to spend the money. And so you can see different things like that we put out there, the government or whomever, in terms of these certifications that keep morphing. Is that causing problems with the small and mid-sized businesses? I see you shaking your head, Debbie.
Yeah, especially for us as a small business, we jumped through all those hoops to do CMMC, to become a registered provider organization, and to have registered providers on staff. We spent all that money for the training. We had a couple of people lined up, and then all of a sudden, all the teeth are pulled out of the program. And whenever we talk to people, they're very hesitant about signing up. So here you go.
Right. There you go. And I know you're a registered practitioner or provider also. I mean, same thing for you?
Yeah, same thing. So the model changed slightly, and then they changed the names of the certs that you have to have. I mean, it's kind of you're following down the trail and just hoping that it doesn't change. And as Debbie said, I mean, for a small business owner, it's a lot. When you send, 10 team members to go and get registered practitioner training, that's an investment.
Right.
And then you're told that, hey, that's kind of moved, it's changed. Now you have to go get X or Y or Z certifications. So, and there's the unfortunate side of it is there's price gouging that happens on the commercial side as well, right? So the providers themselves, you never get a consistent price. So this one charges you 40 grand, 50 grand up front before you even pay your monthly retainer. Right. This one charges you 80 grand, this one charges you 5. So what's the average? What's realistic for me to expect to pay? And we're getting those questions now. I mean, we have clients across 30 states that are waiting to get assessments done. So we've onboarded them. They meet the current practices as they're set today, but they're waiting for an assessment by a third party. And they're asking us, well, what's the price for the assessment?
Right.
I've seen them as low as a couple grand. I've seen them as high as 6 figures. I don't know what to tell you yet.
What the difference is, right. So we're getting close to the end of our time here. And, I always, 2 things. So I'm going to go around to everybody. Mark, I'm going to start with you. And so I'm going to talk a little bit, give you a little time to think about this. In a perfect world, if you had to give a pearl of wisdom to everybody sitting out here around workforce development and what 1 or 2 things we can do to improve the workforce and improve how we deal with the workforce in cybersecurity to help small and mid-sized businesses, what would it be? That's the first thing. And then the second thing is, what's one fun fact about you that will make everybody remember you here today?
Okay. Well, as far as workforce development, there is something about the model, just from the university student side, something about the model that MIT is working at, Cybersecurity Clinic, UC Berkeley's picked it up. Another website, cybersecurityclinics.org, is worthy of exploring if you're looking at this. But to reach students, not from just the academic, but being able to place those students now relating to and dealing with small, medium-sized enterprises, city, county governments, helping them understand the challenges, the fiscal challenges that these organizations face related to cybersecurity, and seeing the gap. I think that can help whet the appetite for some of these students to want to move, and even if they move into the corporate environment, they at least have that experience, that touch point with a smaller organization. As far as fun fact, my wife and I, we celebrate our 36th anniversary this year.
Nice. Yeah, very nice. Good stuff. All right, Debbie, we're going to come to you. So I'm jumping around.
He threw you off.
I thought I had a couple more moments to think about that. From the workforce perspective, for those who have not truly considered apprenticeships, especially if you're a small to medium business, for us, we did not realize when we stepped into it that we were the first business in the state of South Carolina, but it's been debated whether not necessarily the first. If we weren't the first, we were one of the first in the nation to do so. Had no idea about that. It just made logical sense whenever you had such a huge workforce shortage gap in cybersecurity to come up with a viable pathway where you grow your own. And so for us, it made sense way back in, he said it 2014, we set it up in 2016. So it made sense to us way back then, regardless of where, sometimes we've heard that conversation on ROI. You're either going to invest money in the front or you're going to invest money in the rear by constantly retraining people as they come through your program. So we chose to invest the money in the front end.
Good.
And as far as a fun fact.
Yeah, I wasn't going to let you off the hook, I noticed you winding down there, but I was
I love roller coasters, and I have taught my children and my grandchildren how to properly ride roller coasters.
All right. All right. So it does beg the question, favorite roller coaster? Got to pick one.
Favorite roller coaster, for me, to pick one.
Got to pick one.
I really like, I can't even think of the name of it. It's the one at Hollywood Studios in Orlando, with, not the Tower of Terror, but right across from it. Rock, yes.
There you go.
There you go.
All right. And then closing it out, Zach.
All right. So my, I guess, one piece to leave with here, what I think has really helped us in terms of workforce development and sustained workforce development in terms of like employee retention. Right. That's a high turnover. A kid comes in for a job in a cybersecurity company, they find out they don't like it, they maybe go somewhere else. What we've learned and what's worked for us and what we've done to partner with a few different colleges and universities is catch them early. And so don't wait till the junior, senior year. So we catch them freshman year, bring them in a help desk role. So we're a full service firm. So bring them in a help desk role. Start them at tier 1, move them to tier 2 over time, put them in an analyst role. As I mentioned, it's a pretty broad field. Yeah. So by the time they get to pen testing and they realize there's a lot of paperwork, as I mentioned before, they've tried out all the other roles. And the other piece to that is, we've worked with a lot of smaller, less funded colleges and technical schools on giving them proprietary technology for their use. So now they don't have to pay the big hefty licenses for a lot of these, the larger tech companies out there. They're getting something that's installed in businesses across their community, number one. The kids get to run labs on them. They can take them home, doesn't take internet or bandwidth. but then they're also able to see what's actually protecting a lot of the offices around town. So that's been pretty fun. We've worked with a few colleges on that, smaller tech schools as well. That's been helpful on both ends. We're training them how to have a job at CSS, essentially. So,
Gotcha. Nice.
and then the fun fact for myself, so I'm an atrocious singer, right? But I've traveled to Japan.
I've heard you were a great karaoke singer.
So I've traveled, exactly. So I've traveled to Japan and Korea quite a bit years ago, and I fell in love with karaoke. So it doesn't matter if I can carry a tune or not. You fuel me up a little bit, and I'll go out and karaoke all night.
There you go. All right, so I think, to sum it up, we've heard some really great things here. I think that, we have to be innovative, and we really kind of have to think outside of the box. Again, a lot of great discussions have gone on yesterday, today, around workforce, around, the challenges to the workforce. And, our panel was on small and mid-sized businesses, but it really is, one of those things where we just have to be creative, innovative, and really kind of push the envelope a little bit and think about things differently as to where we go, where we reach kids, where we reach adults, to let them know about the opportunities, but not only let them know, but also to help them along that path. I think you said it, pathway, and what does that look like? So with that, we're gonna wrap it up. Again, thank you so much to all of you for taking the time and being energetic up here and giving up those fun facts. And with that, we will turn it up. All right, thanks everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Give them another round of applause, please. I think I'm going to hire Roy to serve as a nice conference MC every single year. It's a great job, Roy.